What's up, everybody? Today we have special guest David Harrison joining the show today. We are going to talk about whether the Wizards should make a move for James Wiseman and Jaden Ivey. And we're going to look at could Bilal work at the 2 and could Deni work at the 4, depending on how we draft next year's draft. But we're going to talk about a lot of Wizards and a little bit of Commanders today, next on Locked On Wizards.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. And tonight's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 and bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That is $150 if your team wins. So just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So it's your boy Brandon Scott again with my guy, the real Ed Oliver, as always, the best backcourt in DC, I'm trying to tell you. But today we have special guest David Harrison, the host of Locked On Commanders, the co-host of Locked On Bucs, and a writer for Sports Illustrated Fan Nation. So David, how you doing tonight, man?
Oh, I'm doing good, man. How are you guys doing?
We're doing, man. First year of a rebuild. So.
Yeah, can't complain. Can't complain. A lot of losses so far, but we know it's a trust the process time right now.
Yeah.
A lot of trust involved. So we're going to kick it off. Really popular right now, David, is a lot of people looking at the situation in Detroit. James Wiseman, DNP. Jaden Ivey has voiced displeasure with his role. Matter of fact, Killian Hayes is getting more minutes than he's getting at this point. So considering this is a rebuilding team, we're trying to accumulate as much young talent as we can. And we do have veteran guys on aspiring deals that need to be moved, i.e. Shamet, Gallinari, maybe Tyus Jones. So looking at the fact that we need to solidify the center position and the limitations of Daniel Gafford, would you entertain a trade for James Wiseman? And would you kind of try to get Jaden Ivey thrown into the deal too?
Yeah, I mean, I would absolutely. You know what I mean? I think you have no reason not to, other than, if you're one of the people out there who just completely think that it's time to jump ship on two young guys who have plenty of career left ahead of them and plenty of opportunities to develop left ahead of them, then, that's the only reason you're gonna not want to sign off on a deal like that, because not just talking about those two young guys and their potential talent and their abilities to potentially impact an NBA rebuild like we're dealing with the Washington Wizards, but the Washington Wizards have no interior defense. They have like Daniel Gafford is it. And if Daniel Gafford rolls his ankle or gets the flu or trips on the curb entering the stadium, like that's it. You're done. There's no interior defense. We saw that already this season earlier with the games that he missed. We saw that when we see that every game, every time he comes off the court, we see the lack of interior defense. And James Wiseman coming in would be in a situation where he's already coming off of the bench. So, that's not going to be a completely new experience for him. And whether or not he eventually takes over a starting role over a guy like Daniel Gafford is to be determined. But to me personally, Daniel Gafford, there's still room for improvement. There's still time for him to grow, himself within his own game. But I think he's a number 2 center. He's not your starter. He shouldn't be a starter on I don't want to say serious. I'm going to say, for lack of a better term, I'll say serious NBA team. And I don't mean that to say like the Washington Wizards aren't a serious NBA franchise, but I mean that from a competitive stance. You know what I mean? I like Gafford. I like what he brings, but I like it a lot better if he's bringing it off the bench.
Yeah, I agree, man. I like Gaff. I'm a big fan of him, but is he that guy starting center? I don't think so. We know what his limitations are. He's a lob threat. He can defend the paint, but he struggles against more agile, bigger bigs. We saw it with Bam Adebayo. We definitely saw it with Joel Embiid. Foul troubles, conditioning. He's had his limitations. And Mike Muscala, I mean, he's a stretch and he can shoot, but that is about it. When shots not dropping, he's out of it. So, would you entertain a James Wiseman deal?
Oh, of course. I mean, David hit a lot of points on the head that if Gaff gets in foul trouble or sets an illegal screen, or even if he's out there, honestly, I mean, Joel Embiid put up 48 points and Gafford tried. Like, he had 4 blocks in the first quarter. So I had to tip my cap to Gafford because he was playing hard. He got elbowed last night as well. They called a technical foul, but that was really an offensive foul on Embiid. So he really Embiid should have had 2 quick fouls in that first quarter. But yeah, when he goes down, it's like you got Muscala, and Gallo can barely move his feet. He's like a cone on defense. So Wiseman still has potential, former first-round pick. I think he still has upside there in Detroit. I mean, Duren has just played – he's outplayed him. So I get why they're playing Jalen Duren over James Wiseman. But Wiseman still has upside. He's still an athletic big, and I think with the Wizards, you look when Wiseman got some playing time last year. He had 11 and 12 in the last game of the season. He had a double-double. He had 12 points and 10 boards against Orlando, another double-double. He had 14 and 11 against OKC, another double-double. So he was racking up double-doubles last year. You're not going to have to give up a first-round pick for Wiseman. Personally, I wouldn't give him a first-round pick, so you're probably going to have to give up. We just got a bunch of seconds from the Bradley Beal deal. We got a second for Monte Morris. We got another second I want to say we got a second in the Porzingis deal with Tyus Jones, if I'm not mistaken. So we racked up on second-round picks. So I feel like you can use some of those seconds to bring in a guy like James Wiseman and just have young talent that can develop under the Washington Wizards organizations right now. So it's basically a low-risk, high-reward trade, bringing in a guy like James Wiseman that can bring in some big man depth. Because just throwing Gafford out there against – your Jokic, I mean, I can't say Jokic is of the world because there's only one Jokic, but Jokic, Embiid, even Porzingis. You saw what Porzingis did to us a couple days ago where he put up 10 points in the first quarter. So even some of the mid-tier bigs like Vucevic and some of the guys who are not juggernaut centers, we haven't even played Anthony Davis yet. We haven't played Sabonis. There's a lot of bigs we haven't even played against yet that are better than some of the bigs that we played. So, yeah, I would definitely take a swing on James Wiseman. I don't think it hurts at all.
No, I mean, not at all. I mean, not even adding Ivey to the deal. When you look at Wiseman, he's still young. He fits the timeline. If he pans out, you got a guy at center who's very versatile. I mean, who can play some ball. He just needs coaching. I think he needs the right environment. He needs a rebuilding team. I mean, I know the Pistons, they're a rebuilding team, but they're kind of a little further ahead than we are a little bit. As far as, now they're starting to add guys like Bogdanovich, which I know they're trying to move now, ironically. But Ivey, I mean, if you can grab both of them, Lord have mercy. I mean, I know both of us said that we wanted us to draft Jaden Ivey out of Purdue, man. I mean, I think the only thing that really holds up Ivey coming over to DC is where do you play him? Do you play him at the 2? Because who starts at the point? Tyus Jones is the guy now, but is he the long-term answer at point? And Jordan Poole, in my opinion, is not ready for point because obviously he needs to rein in a lot, shooting more hops in the shots and really getting those turnovers down, man. Because, I mean, he's still making a lot of questionable moves, so I don't think he's quite ready for point. But Jaden Ivey on this team, again, these two guys shorten that rebuild, and they fit the timeline. So I would definitely entertain that. But the question is, what do we give up? Do they want Gallo? Look, Gallo at this point is on a walker with tennis balls, man. I mean, he can barely move. Shamet, when he's not hitting threes, he's pretty much non-existent. DeLon Wright is not his self, man. Mike Muscala is very limited on the defensive end and ain't rebounding. And then really, to me, the guy that has the most value is Tyus Jones. But then again, who is the guy at point going forward? Because I know a lot of Wizards fans are just tired of the combo guard trying to be a point guard. We set through Dinwiddie. We know how that went down. Monte Morris, he did well, did his job, but he won the guy. So I think there's a lot of questions, and I think it's going to get clearer the closer we get to the deadline when we start. But I don't know if we can move Gallo. I mean, how much value can you get for Gallo Shamet? We both kind of talked about it on the last episode, David, is we believe they need to go ahead and buy him out. I think go ahead and buy out Gallo, go ahead and buy out Shamet, give Johnny David his minutes, and go from there. But going back to Wiseman, absolutely. I'm going on the phone right now because they're not even playing them. So come on to DC, get some playing time. And again, they fit the timeline. So I would definitely entertain that move. So next, we're going to look at the Wizards are slated to be the number 1 pick next year. So Ron Holland has been a name that's been mentioned a lot at small forward. So we're going to look at could Bilal, could he be the answer to the shooting guard going forward? And could Deni fit at power forward? So we're going to talk about that and more next. But before we do, tonight's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. So you're wondering, what is PrizePicks? Well, they are actually the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They are the easiest and most exciting way to play fantasy sports. It's just you versus the numbers. Instead of betting thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more or less 2 to 6 players, and then you go against their stat projections. So looking forward Wednesday night, or tomorrow night rather, against the Hornets. I'm looking at a few people as far as fantasy. Terry Rozier is always a Wizards killer. I mean, Nick Richards, I'm looking at as far as rebounds. So and on the Wizards side, look, Kyle Kuzma is almost always a shoo-in to get 20 plus points. So I'm looking at him and Jordan Poole as far as points. So that's who I'm looking at as far as picks. But testing my skills in PrizePicks this basketball season is the most exciting way to play fantasy family sports. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. I'm trying to tell you, PrizePicks is really simple to play. You just make picks and you submit your entry in less than 60 seconds. I'm trying to tell you, it's that easy. So all you got to do is go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use promo code LockedOnNBA for the first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, I definitely recommend it. Thanks for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every day. Tomorrow we're going to do it like we always do, a live recap of the Wizards versus Hornets game tomorrow. So definitely tune in for that. So before I pass the mic to my man E, like I said before we went to break, the Wizards are slated to be the number one pick. And obviously, prospects change who goes number one. You know, people are looking at SAR, maybe a center. We have a need a center, but most of the mock drafts are pointing at Ron Holland from the G League Ignite. So if we indeed draft him to play at the wing, do you see a future with Bilal Coulibaly at the 2 guard? And do you think that Deni Ivey could slide to power forward to accommodate?
You asking me or E?
You.
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. Yeah, I mean, I think at this point in time, you can see pretty much everything. I don't love, like Deni, like the idea of Deni at like the 4 or something. I don't really love that, but I think that, more and more, it's really a situation where you got to play matchup basketball, and I remember talking to a lot of people about this during the NBA playoffs last year and kind of gauging some of the matchups. And, I'll take my small victory lap here. I want to premise this by saying in no way, shape, or form do I know anything more about basketball than David Aldridge does. But we were talking about the NBA playoffs last year, and he was like, the Nuggets had a good run, but they're about to get bounced by the Suns. I was like, I don't know, DA. I think the Nuggets have the weapons to bounce the Suns out. I don't think the Suns have the depth and yada yada. And you guys all know what happened there. So that's my small victory lap because that's the only opportunity I'm ever going to have to try to best a guy like David Aldridge. But we talk a lot about positionless basketball. And DA and I have had a lot of conversations about matchup basketball specifically and how teams, we just saw against the Philadelphia 76ers, like at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what, Jordan Poole might be able to pull off and with some of his, we'll call them antics for lack of a better term, how consistent Kyle Kuzma can be, how much potential Bilal Coulibaly has defensively or offensively. When you have a guy like Joel Embiid who's just running roughshod all over the court, all over your team, it doesn't matter from the top of the arc, from the baseline, from under the basket. He's wherever he is the best player on the court. And that is the kind of player that you want to see develop in the NBA. So with Bilal, I'm much more comfortable because if you want to take a look at him at any other number of positions, you have the time to do that. You have the time to kind of develop him into that kind of a role. I think Deni is a little bit more limited. And honestly, I prefer this year's version of Deni Avdija running downhill. Like I like what he's been able to do at all 3 levels of the court, scoring wise, but I really like him running downhill. So as many looks as you can get him, obviously in transition is beautiful, but if you can draw up any plays or draw up any designs to get him running through the lane, I think that's really where he's starting to grow a little bit more that I've seen from him. So to me, unless you're playing small ball, the 4 doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But again, with this team, I mean, if you can make it make sense, then certainly go for it. But a guy like Ron Holland, I think if you're rebuilding like the Washington Wizards are, you just take the best dude available and you build your team around that kind of talent.
Yeah, I agree. Best player available is definitely the route I think they need to go. But I think center is the position I would go for because, like you said, I like seeing Deni at the small forward. Now, Bilal Coulibaly at the 2 is intriguing. But what do you think, E? I mean, you think that Bilal could work at the 2?
Yeah, I do want to see him handle the ball better. That's my only concern. He has that high dribble, but he's steadily improving handling the basketball. But I think defensively, I think he can guard 2s and 3s. He did knock down a 3 the other night. So I think offensively, he's developing more, getting to the basket. Transitions, he's done a great job. But yeah, I can see him be at the 2. I don't want to compare the summer league to real games, but in the summer league, he was playing at the 2 as well, where he was orchestrating, running the pick and roll, where he was the ball handler, making some nice pocket passes, getting to the basket, getting to the free throw line as well. So I think he could definitely play the 2 guard. I think he's capable of playing 2 through 4 at this point. Yeah. Of course, he just needs to get stronger. But I think moving forward, I think you can see him coming off the bench, playing the 2, playing the two, where if you have Jordan Poole playing at the one, you have a better defender at the two instead of having that smaller backcourt with Tyus and Jordan Poole, where defensively has been every lineup we put out there has been pretty bad defensively, but when it's Tyus and Jordan Poole, it's been our worst defensive lineup. So yeah, definitely, I would like to see Bilal play at the two at times.
Yeah, I agree with both what you guys are both saying, man. If we grab Holland, maybe that's worth a look, because at one point Deni did say he did feel comfortable playing the four, if not more comfortable. So, and we've seen him play well against fours. We saw him play well against Giannis, which he's a tough guard, man. So on the defensive end, I think that Deni Avdija is versatile enough to play the four, because if you have a chance to get around Holland, you definitely get him. But I definitely think that center is, a young center is somebody that we need to look at. Sarr, Bradshaw is another prospect. So yeah, I agree with a lot of what you both said. So it's gonna be intriguing to see how they approach next year's draft. But I'm gonna go ahead and pass the mic to my man E.
Yeah, I haven't deep dove into the draft yet, but we certainly need a big man. We could take any big man help would just help this team tremendously. It may not, get us a bunch of wins, but at least we would have some type of presence in the post where, people are just, having a layup line at this point right now. But yeah, I do want to get you guys' thoughts on Jaden Ivey. We talked about James Wiseman, but Dave, I'll go with you first. I want to get your thoughts on Jaden Ivey, if he's a guy worth looking after.
Yeah, I think he is, and again, just going to go back to James Wiseman. I think obviously the need for a guy like Wiseman is obviously more apparent in today's roster than a guy like this. But I think anytime you have the opportunity to go get that kind of upside, if that team is going to sell, you got to go and try to buy. And it really just boils down to what do they want and what can you give up? Because, some of these pieces, like, if they go asking for, something crazy like a Jordan Poole, obviously that's a piece you're trying to build around for this team. So you can't go giving that up. And you don't want to give up too much capital for the future as well. And that's where things get a little bit complicated. The other part of that equation, I don't think that this Washington Wizards front office is going to do a whole lot of buying. I do think that if they do buy anybody, whether it be a signing somewhere off the streets or a trade for a guy like Wiseman, it'll be to get another big man. Because everybody, they have to know they need another big man. Like if they're going to go, how many more games? We got 75, 76 more games like this. It's going to be a very long season, more so than we expected it to be. I think everybody expected a long year, but even more than you expect it to be. But it's really difficult for this team, because I really believe that this Wizards team is in the process of trying to figure out not who they're going to be long term, but who they are right now. Like they're on a mission to find themselves. You know what I mean? Like they're walking through the woods hoping for a hallucination in front of them to tell them what their path is going to be. So it's hard to make these deals and sell any type of future capital if you don't know what path you're trying to take. And you end up bringing these players in. You look at Wiseman. What is he scheduled to be a restricted free agent next year? So you're going to have to make a decision on him. You have to commit to him for multiple years, not just a year or two. Whereas if you draft a guy, you're committing, but it's a much easier commitment to make as you develop the identity of your team. So that's the only reason I don't know that the Wizards will actually be buyers in any of these avenues. But like I said, me personally, I would absolutely do it. I just don't know if this front office is going to do it, because I don't know that their intent this season is to really add more pieces as much as it is to figure out what the pieces they already have mean for their future.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I don't see them being buyers. I think if they chose between one of the two, I think they would most likely go after Wiseman, just because, Gaffer's already missed a few games. So if he's not in, then we don't even look like an NBA team when he's not out there. It's hard to see us win more than 10, 15 games. And we've been West has been waving the white flag and subbing guys out with 10 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. So, but once again, it's a trust in the process and developing. But my opinion on Jaden Ivey, of course, I would definitely take a swing on him. I loved him coming out of the draft. Just watching him with Purdue. I'm a big Maryland fan, so I got to see him play a lot against Maryland just in the Big Ten Conference. He's electric, man. He can get downhill. And I think Cade Cunningham coming back, of course, is just really taking away his minutes. And Killian Hayes is getting minutes over him. Right now, he's out with an illness, and I'll say that in quotation marks. Clearly, he's not happy. He doesn't want to be there. So I don't think he's going to be there past the trade deadline. He might not even be there past the end of this end of 2023. I don't know if he's going to be there. It may get to a situation where they may just have to move on from him, and that may be better for both sides. So it's just a compensation. What are we going to give up? we don't have a lot of value with our guys. You know, Brandon, I know we talked about Shamet and Gallo. Right now they just have zero value at this point. So it might be tough, but I was looking at the trade with James Wiseman when he did get traded. It was a 4-team trade. The Pistons got James Wiseman. The Warriors got Gary Payton and 2 second-round picks from Atlanta. The Hawks got Sadiq Bey, and then the Blazers got Kevin Knox and 5 future second-round picks. So I'm pretty sure that the Pistons had Kevin Knox. They traded him to the Blazers. And I want to say the Pistons gave up those 5 future second-round picks. So to get Wiseman, it probably would be a player, maybe DeLon Wright's caliber, and then 3 second-round picks, something like that. That's what I'm thinking it may take than Jaden Ivey. I'm just not sure what they would want for him. But I wouldn't get a first-round pick for any of these guys. But we're going to move on to the preview. I got one question for David. But before we do that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. I'll give out a couple of picks that I have for tomorrow night. I have Kyle Kuzma getting 20-plus points. Brandon talked about that on PrizePicks. I put that bet in every single day, and it's hit for me. Kyle Kuzma's got at least 20 points. He had 28 last game. And then I'm going to go with assists here. LaMelo Ball over 9.5 assists. Tyrese Maxey had 11 assists against us. Tyrese Halliburton had over 10 assists against us. Who else? Trae Young had 10 assists or more against us. So everybody is getting – every point guard that plays this gets at least 10 assists. So I will lock that in. LaMelo Ball getting over 9.5 assists tomorrow night against the Wizards. I definitely see a double-double in his future. So make sure you guys use FanDuel. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season and the NBA season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, so real quick, I have one question for you before we get into the preview. What's been the biggest surprise for you? It can be player or just coaching-wise, and what's been the biggest disappointment for you so far through the first 6 games of the season?
The biggest surprise to me is honestly been how energetic this team is, and I know it's hard to watch at times, and it really is. And as a fan, I understand the frustration, But if you try to look at this through a team building lens, and I think this is where Coach Unseld was coming from, following their latest debacle. The effort is there, you know what I mean, and that's a very, very small consolation prize when you see guys just not guarding well and not communicating in zone and not, rotating properly or not sticking to their guy. It's very hard to swallow that as a silver lining. But I think there's something to be said about that because guys in this situation, I mean, again, this front office has made no secret about what process this is. This is not a situation where the Wizard, to the extent of we're going to go out every night and compete. Yes, the Washington Wizards want to go out and win every single game, but they're not in the position where they're lying to themselves and trying to pretend that they've got the next LeBron James sitting on the bench waiting to just explode on the NBA. This team knows who they are. The coach knows who they are. The players know who they are. And for professional athletes who have to do this 82 times, over the next course of however many months, that can be hard to swallow. And especially when you got a really young team, that can be even more difficult to swallow. Now, again, we're only a handful of games into this thing, so we'll see if it continues. But right now, even when they're getting blown out, I remember, the last game I was able to cover in person was the Celtics game and KP's return and all that stuff. And that really was the focus. It was all about Kristaps Porzingis coming back to DC after the trade and everything else. Nobody really even cared what was going on with the Washington Wizards on the court. And guys, it was a Boston Celtics home game. I actually left that game feeling like I covered a home win because of how electric that crowd was, because it was a Celtics crowd. But so I think the fans who get frustrated, I see it on social media, fans want this guy fired and they want, this guy benched and all this other stuff. They get to understand the process that they're actually in because these players are embracing it. So even when they're down 30 points and, the last guy on the end of the bench is getting a dunk, they're celebrating for their guy. And that's why you see them throwing backboard dunk passes, alley-oops to each other, because they're out there trying to make this process as fun as it can be, because there might be a handful of guys that are on this roster right now that are going to be on this roster in 3 years. Like, and they all know it. So part of it is a fact finding mission. Part of it is a stylistic finding mission. Like you see Jordan Poole doing all kinds of crazy stuff. It's because they want Jordan Poole to figure out where he's most lethal. Let's go through this process and just do what you're going to do, and we will figure out what works, and that is what we will build on for the future. So the Jordan Poole you see right now is playing a lot looser. He's playing a lot, call it reckless. You know what I mean? Because of that fact, and I think it's important to keep that up. So I've been impressed by the energy. Again, it's November, so let's see what happens. Even as the calendar turns, let's see if that's maintained. What I've been most disappointed in is the defensive breakdowns, and it's not even. Coach Unseld makes a lot of points of like we got a lot of new guys and it's hard to communicate, and I get all that. If that was the only reason this was happening, but there are some really, really bad defensive breakdowns happening on this team, especially coming from Jordan Poole, especially against Philadelphia 76ers, where this dude they're playing zone coverage. They're playing zone defense, zone coverage. Sorry, I'm going back to my Commanders days, but they're playing zone defense. He knows he has a guy inside, but he gives up the outside of the court of the lane to the guy that he's guarding. You don't need to do that when you have a guy inside of you. That's why you have that zone helper there in case that guy gets by you. But that's not the disciplined play that you're getting on the defensive side of the court. I really think I don't want to call it a football IQ, a basketball IQ issue. It is it's an execution intelligence issue. It's in the moment. Like when Jordan Poole goes back and turns on the film of some of these really bad defensive series that he had against Philadelphia 76ers, he's going to know immediately when he turns on the tape what he did wrong, why it was wrong, and why he shouldn't do it. The problem is in the moment, whether it's because he's trying to make a play, trying to be smarter than the average bear, whatever it is, he's not doing it. That's where this team needs to get smarter, because that individual defensive performance and breakdown has nothing to do with communication. If it's just communication, okay, I got it. If I told you to swap, you didn't swap. I told you to switch, you didn't switch. I told you not to switch, but you did anyway. I got it. That's communication. That's new dudes getting to know new dudes. That is individual bad defense, and that's where you can't afford to have star players faltering.
100%. That was broken down very well. So Jordan Poole, he's definitely had some frustrating moments. I thought offensively he looked better, where he wasn't doing the Shaq the Fool, throwing stuff off the backboard, or the turnaround behind the back and shooting a three against Porzingis, and Porzingis easily blocks it. So I didn't see that, but defensively, yes, he definitely had some rough moments, as they all did, and Embiid ended up with 48 points. But yeah, I like your point about them supporting each other. I think they've all have pushed each other to be better, and just you see Kuzma and Deni talking on the bench to each other. So it looks like they're having, positive conversations where they are trying to get better and lead each other and improve, where we've seen teams in the past where guys were running the locker room, Dinwiddie and getting in fights arguments with other people, Montrezl Harrell in a fist fight with KCP and Deni and Bertans and whatnot. We haven't seen that this year. It looks like guys are trying to push each other to get better, even though they're resulting in big losses. But you see the end of the bench, guys get in, like Ryan Rollins, Johnny Davis is improving in later minutes. Eugene Amaruri, he's looked really, really good. He looks like he could play linebacker out there. And I have a funny stat here. So the best 5-man lineups. This is from Wizards Muse on Twitter. I saw this. He said best 5-man lineups by point differential. The Wizards are number 4 in the league. It's Ryan Rollins, Johnny Davis, Bilal, Anthony Gill, and Amaruri. They're at plus 28. Now, the context to that is that they're playing at the end of the games. So they're playing against, third string guys and the end of the bench of, guys like the Miami Heat and the Celtics and whatnot. So, of course, their numbers look better. But these guys, they come in, they play hard, and they play with heart. Rollins is picking up from full court. You see Bilal defending well, Eugene. So I do want to see some of these guys get a little bit more minutes when the games are actually competitive. And it's unfortunate the games have only been competitive for about 2.5 quarters. So I do want to see Rollins and Eugene get some more minutes earlier in the game.
Can I touch on that real quick? Because that's actually something I've been thinking a lot about with this Wizards team right now. So part of the here's why there's a little bit of confidence in the coach. And I'm being completely honest with you with Coach Unseld. Like I understand a lot of the frustration with him, and I totally get it from any outside, from media, fans, whoever. To me, though, if you're the front office in this situation, if you're not going to let Coach Unseld have an opportunity to start putting this team together over the next really good couple years, not just this year, just fire him now. You know what I mean? Because you need to start identifying your identity of your team in the eye of the coach who's going to put them together. But I will say this. You're getting a lot of good basketball. Well, I would say better basketball in the opening quarter, potentially 2 quarters in some of these games, right? I know things got a little bit out of hand against the Sixers a little bit earlier. To me, that's good coaching. And I'll actually make a comparison for the NFL. We talk about game scripts in the NFL. The first 15, 20 plays is your game script. Is where your coach, your quarterback come together and they say, this is what we think we can execute. This is how we think we can execute it. You see the Wizards come out in the beginning of a lot of these games, and they're actually playing good basketball. Defensively, not so much, but offensively, they're playing really good basketball, and they're in rhythm, and there's some good energy there. And you have the occasional Jordan Poole kind of, what are you doing, bro, type of play. And then sometimes he makes it, sometimes he doesn't. It's when the adjustments start. It's when the other side gets to say, okay, here's what the Wizards are going to do. Here's how we're going to counter that. And now Coach Unseld and his staff are trying to coach in the moment, and they're trying to teach these guys who are just getting to know each other, learning how to communicate, all these things. They're trying to continue these lessons. So the coaches know how to scheme these players, I think, is what we're seeing. It's the process of making adjustments on the fly in the heat of the battle, and that's where the growth has to happen. But I do want to say, again, it's a small silver lining, right? But the fact that the Wizards come out most of these games, and even against some of these better teams, are actually competitive for the beginning part of it, shows that this coaching staff understands who they have and how to use them against their opponents. It's just about building the consistency now.
Yeah. No, I love the point that you said that they should just let him go. And it was so interesting they gave him that 4th-year option that they just picked it up so early. So we'll see if I think he will make it till next year, but I just feel like kind of like when a new front office comes in, they want to pick their guy, and they stuck with Wes Unseld Jr., which was an interesting decision. I'm not going to say he's a lame duck head coach, but I think eventually they will move on to a different coach. They brought in David Vanderpool, they brought in Brian Keefe, so they brought in assistants that they're familiar with. But it's hard to judge Wes this year because the roster is they're just not competitive. So I give Wes a small pass. I know the majority of the fan base wants him to be fired immediately, and I don't blame them either. But so yeah, it's a tough part for Wes. But yes, he's really good in that first quarter and second quarter. And then last year, we led the league in giving up 15+ point lead. So Wes is known. The Clippers game, we were up by 35, and we ended up losing that game. So Wes is good with that first half script, and then like you brought up the adjustments. He just struggles with that third quarter.
My bad. My turn.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of piggyback off what you guys are saying, man. I mean, West ain't going nowhere. I mean,
yeah.
I thought they kind of rushed it by giving him that 4th-year option. His evaluation year. I thought they would have gave him a year to kind of evaluate where he's at and then go from there. But kind of going back to kind of combining everything, man. Looking at the Wiseman trade and what the expected culture is like. Just because you're in year 1 of a rebuild doesn't mean you got to play like you're in year 1 of a rebuild. A rebuild ain't got to take forever. That's the thing. The thing about what really marks the good GMs who build championship contenders to the GMs that don't do squat is reading the market. If you have the opportunity to go get a Wiseman and a Jaden Ivey, make that. And your excuse to the fan base can't be, we're trying to be patient. No, if you see talent in the market, you got to make that move because look, it's not guaranteed that this rebuild has to be 3, 4, 5 years. I mean, let's be real, man. They got this whole Hennessy Lounge and all that. How many people are going to really pay for that Hennessy Lounge 3 years, 4 years, 5 years into a rebuild? I mean, they're still trying to make money. So, kind of reading the market. They got to make the necessary moves according to the market. I get the, having a vision of a long rebuild and evaluating, but the same token, it doesn't have to be a long rebuild. You have this year to evaluate what talent you have, what assets you have. And if, like I said, read the market. Look at Cleveland. Cleveland was one move away, and they waited, and then he found that move in Donovan Mitchell, and they made it. They read the market. So when it's time to make that move, look, Jaden Ivey averaged 16 points last year. He's going to slide in. He's going to score a bunch of buckets. James Wiseman is a versatile big. So you make that move. He's young. You can still develop him. He can still be part of the timeline. So, that's one thing I want to look at for this front office, and I get it, it's rebuilding. But in the same token, when you see that move in the market that needs to be made, especially for young talent like Jaden Ivey, Lord have mercy, you got to go out there and grab them. So, that's where I'm at with it, man. I like, looking at the culture. I like to see Kyle Kuzma be that leader. Jordan Poole, but like I said, I don't want to see them playing like they're in the first year of a rebuild. Play like you're trying to win every game because that's culture. is trying to win every game. Not having fun, getting blown out, you throwing the ball up the backboard and all that, having fun. It ain't no fun about getting blown out by 30 points, man. There's nothing fun about that. So that's where I'm at, man.
Yeah. And Brandon, I'll mess with you real quick. I'll definitely take James Wiseman, but I will not take Kai Jones at all.
Oh,
but I definitely take James Wiseman for sure.
Well, I know he's a little quirky, man, but I mean, it's one of those. I get why people wouldn't want Kai Jones. I get it, but still, if you can try to mold a young man and try to work with him, and if he does figure it out, then that's a good move, man. So it's just, you can look at in sports period, but especially the NBA, there's a long list of questionable players, man, where they found the right setup and they flourished. When they had those issues with Dennis Rodman towards the end and they shipped him to San Antonio and he was dyeing his hair and acting crazy, they made a necessary move and they brought him into a situation where they had that culture and they molded him and he was a pivotal piece of a dynasty. So, sometimes you got to take that chance.
Yeah, for sure. But I would definitely love Jaden Ivey on this roster for sure. He would bring some explosiveness and toughness to the team and physicality for sure. David, the Wizards play the Hornets tomorrow night. What's your prediction for that game? And then also you can give your prediction for the the Commanders and Seahawks game on Sunday at 4:00.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Hornets. The Hornets are going to win. You know what I mean? I just, barring anything kind of crazy or like a hot night for JP or Kuz or something like that. That's pretty much that's going to be the prediction for the majority of the season, I think. But never say never, right? That's why they play the games and all that stuff. It's one on the court, not on the roster sheet. For the Commanders and Seahawks, I think I'm kind of in the same boat there. I mean, the more I think about this matchup, the more I just think the Seahawks are going to be able to pull this one off. If it was in FedEx, maybe you have a better opportunity. The Seahawks fans do travel, but I don't know if they travel to DC as well as they travel to other places. I like what Sam is doing, but I'm of the opinion at this point in time that if the Commanders don't score at least 25 points against the team, they're probably not going to win that game. I think that's kind of just the way you anticipate a lot of these games, and I don't know that this team puts together 25 points against the Seattle Seahawks specifically, just because they've got a secondary that is playing very, very well and finding ways to beat Devin Witherspoon, Tariq Woolen is going to be really hard for Sam. And this is going to be a game where I think Sam's either going to throw 2 touchdowns or he's going to throw 2 interceptions. If it's 2 interceptions, they're probably going to lose that game.
Yeah, I agree with you on the first one with the Wizards. The Seahawks, I do agree with you too. I think it's going to be pretty close. I think it's going to come down to it. The spread is 6. I think it's going to be a little bit closer than that, maybe like 5 or 3. I think it's going to be really, really closer than what a lot of people think. But I do think it's going to come down. I think the key player is going to be Emmanuel Forbes. How does he match up against DK? How does he match up against Lockett or Smith and Jigba? So I think it's going to come down to that. And then obviously we can't turn the ball over just in a hostile environment in Seattle. So, but I think it's going to be a really close game.
Yeah, we'll see, man. My prediction for the Wizards game, Lord have mercy, man. Why y'all put me on the spot like that? It's going to be a close game, man. But we have Wizards killers on the Hornets team, man. Rozier, man, always cooks us.
Rozier is out. He's out for the next 2 weeks from what I saw.
Lord. So, I mean, we still got Nick Richards. He's another known Wizards killer. So, I'm going to be an optimist tonight, man. I'm going to say the Wizards get a close win, 108-104. Jordan Poole drops 25. Kyle Kuzma drops 31. And Bilal looks better in this game. I see Bilal dropping 14 points, man. But looking at the Commanders, this is going to be a tough one, man. I mean, it's always tough to win in Seattle, man. But if this D-line could put some pressure on Geno Smith, man, we have a chance. Because look, Forbes, man, he had his issues, but last week he looked decent. So it's we'll see. Prediction. I'm gonna say the Commanders win 28-21. I'm rocking with the Commanders, man.
I like it.
I mean, hey, that's more than 25 points. So you know what I mean. That's the benchmark I'm setting for the Commanders offense all season long. So
now I think Sam I Am's going to show up, man. I think he's going to show up. I think. People are sleeping on him. If you look at his stat line, passing yards, he's a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. I mean, people are still talking about Caleb Williams. I mean, we don't need no guys crying up in the stands, man. Now we got our guy now. So yeah, my bad. But so
No,
yeah,
you're good. You're telling the truth.
I'm just sorry, telling like it is, man. I'm just saying we have our guy. You know, the search is over. So I guess we'll go ahead and roll it tonight. Definitely appreciate you, Dave, man, coming on the show, chopping it up with us, man. Before we roll, do you have anything else you want to plug tonight, man?
No, I mean, InsideTheWizards.com, part of Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation, then yeah, Locked On Commanders if you want football stuff. And I mean, you can find me on Twitter, dharrison82. I'm gonna be honest, I don't tweet much, but I'm down to talk pretty much anything with people. So
yes, sir. So definitely check out Dave, man, because he knows what he's talking about. Definitely knows what he's talking about. So definitely check in and look at Locked On Commanders and Locked On Bucs. So again, appreciate your time, man. Everybody, like, subscribe, comment below. Let us know what you think about the subject matter tonight. Would you start Deni at the 4 in long term? Is Bilal a guy at the 2? You know, what is the vision going for? Definitely let us know. Wherever you get your podcast, 5-star review is much appreciated. So again, appreciate you guys. See you guys tomorrow night for the live recap of the Hornets Wizards recap. So hail to the Wizards, hail to the Commanders, and peace. Everybody have a good night.